Hi everyone and welcome to blog 20 of the Tackle the Feelings Before the Behaviour parenting approach. And today's blog is going to be entitled, Is Spanking Harmful to Children? And I've held back doing this blog for a while because I seem to get a lot of backlash when I bring up my viewpoints here from people. But I think it's so important, and it's such an important topic to talk about. And I think that it's really important that parents are informed about the implications of spanking and what can happen. And I'll run through some of the reasons why it seems to be such a heated debate, as well as give you some real background around what this kind of approach and parenting approach and fear-based parenting, as I call it, does to children emotionally and in their lives, and what it translates to them. So to start this off, spanking, what I'm talking about is when you hit children as a punishment. So a lot of people stick to hitting them on the bum. Doesn't even need to be hard. Some parents go a little bit over the top and can clip you around the ears or whack you on the legs, get the wooden spoon, get a shoe, or I've been whacked with a coat hanger. Whatever it is, it's the child's been what the parent deems naughty, and they've reacted by punishing the child physically. So that's what I mean by spanking. And to answer my question, from my opinion, I believe this is extremely harmful to children. And the reason I think it's harmful is because it just doesn't add up with the two things that I hold very, very sacred in parenting, and that's attachment, which is the bond between child and the primary caregiver, which is the parent or both parents, mainly the primary parent, and that's often the same-sex parent. And then emotional regulation, which is what my approach is all about. And emotional regulation and attachment go hand in hand. And this does spanking or physical aggression or physical violence, as I see it happen often, doesn't fit into any category in terms of building up a healthy attachment or teaching children about emotions, teaching them how to behave better through guidance and education. There's no place for it, because our job is to teach children. The adults need to teach children how to manage those emotional experiences that are going on. And children have a number of developmental milestones or areas that they sort of go through as they're developing and growing. And a lot of this can be very trying for parents, and I get that. I totally get that. And can create a lot of fear and frustration and everything that goes on in the home, and you want to teach your children and you want it to stick. And a lot of parents that I've worked with, they'll talk till they're blue in the face and the child won't listen. So I'm not taking away the need to teach and create some order and control within the home. I'm just proposing that this is not the best way to go about it. And here's why. Spanking creates fear. That's what you're doing. You're not teaching a child to behave in a way because the child agrees with what you're saying, and the child sees the merit in what you're saying, and the child learns the skills around the discipline and the consequences of actions. You take away the consequence of the action that they've done by spanking them. So if they break something in the home, you take away the lesson of, if you do this, it breaks and it's gone for good, and you hurt people in the process, or you don't get that thing back, or whatever the lesson may be. And the lesson in that is, if I break something, I feel pain. Mum is disappointed or dad is disappointed. I get in trouble. I am naughty. So it's taking away from the lesson of what you're trying to teach consequences for, as well as creating a fear, making you, the parents, seem frightening. And that takes away trust. And the number one thing in parenting is that they need to learn self-trust and self-love through that relationship with you, that attachment with you. So they learn how to trust themselves and their own decisions through learning how to trust you. And if you are untrustworthy, if you become frightening, if you become inconsistent, if you don't have a handle on things, if you don't educate and teach them, you take away that safety. And depending how it's handled, the fear and making someone feel really guilty and ashamed for behaving in a way that they knew no better to behave, especially when you haven't taught them the correct way to behave, or they keep doing things because you're spanking but you're not teaching, that is punishing them for their emotions, for their reactions, for their behavior, for their exploring in the world. And defines as a big exploration developmental zone area in childhood. Making mistakes is something really important. It's not a good idea to be punishing mistakes. It's because that creates an anxiety later on in life as well. We need to be teaching children how to be mindful about what they're doing, learn about consequences of actions, fall a few times, and know that your love for them is unconditional, that they're not going to be punished for making a mistake. They're not going to be punished for acting out when they feel a certain way. Because often when they're feeling scared or when they're feeling angry, they don't have the tools, they don't have the brain development to be able to release that in an appropriate way unless it's taught. So that's what emotional regulation is. You're teaching children how to manage those emotions, what they're feeling, those instabilities, that sadness, whatever the case may be. You need to be teaching children how to manage those emotions and do it in a way that is not harmful to themselves and other people. Everything they're doing is a lesson. Everything you're doing is a lesson. What they're going to get from you is that we don't take the time to explain. We enforce our power and our will. And so that creates a sense of powerlessness in children, which links to shame. Something is wrong with me. I feel powerless. Bullies, to try and regain control, what do? They go and do what they get taught in the home, or it could be emotional as well. Punishment in general, not just spanking. Punishment is so harmful. We want to teach consequences, not punishment, because making someone, a little child who doesn't understand, feel bad and guilty and ashamed for reacting in a way they knew no better to react, or trying to seek attention because they're not getting attention and their emotional needs met from you. Punishing them for that is a failure in parenting. It's not a win. Getting them to be compliant out of fear, that's not a win. That is teaching them that they are powerless with you. They will behave how you need them to behave. It's all about you. And the minute they can, they're going to try and find and regain a sense of control and power in another area of their life. And eating disorders, bullying, cutting, low self-esteem, not wanting to change in front of other people, not building prominent relationships, mental illness, anxiety, even if it's not within the realm of a disorder, just feeling a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, inability to form boundaries. The list goes on, and that's linked to fear and shame and anger. Because when children are punished, that creates a sense of anger. Often, that if they react in anger to you, you punish more. So It's not a good idea to spank your children. It sends a message of it's not okay to feel what you feel. It's not okay to be yourself. You need to do it my way. I know better than everybody else. And that moment when they realize that you didn't have it all together, it's not going to be pretty. So, or the cycle just goes on and on and on, and people battle with these things, and they have lots of triggers, and they have lots of problems, emotional needs that aren't met, and that comes out in relationships, and that comes out in their ability to feel good about themselves later on. Spanking is very harmful to a child's self-esteem and trust. And the number one thing that we want to be doing with children is validating emotions, telling them that whatever they feel is okay, building a healthy relationship with emotions. And that doesn't get taught with spanking or punishments that enforce your domineering reign of terror where they are frightened of you. You don't want your children to be frightened of you. You want your children to see you as someone who is a protector, who is a guide, who can teach you, who has time to help you do the right thing and want to do the right thing for yourself. It's preparation work, setting up those values, setting up those rules. Structure and routine in the home is your best bet for good behavior. When children feel safe, there's no need for them to act out. There's no need for them to rebel against what you're saying. When they are rebelling, when they are being naughty, when they are being defiant over and over again doing the same thing, something's going wrong in the home with the relationship with you. They are frightened of you or lacking your attention and presence. It is your parenting that is going wrong, not the child. So punishing them and putting the blame on the child is not the way to go. It's about really looking within, looking at your reaction, your inability to manage your own emotions and your reactivity, and making one parent the bad guy. Dad's going to come home and he's going to reign as terror. That's creating wedges, good cop, bad cop. It should be on an equal page. And there should be rules in the house and consequences for those rules. And there's plenty of strategies. You can go online. You can have rewards. Positive parenting, look that up. It's great. Be mindful of what you're doing with your children. Build them up, not push them down. Spanking puts them down. Spanking tells them that inherently they are wrong. That it creates shame. That creates problems with how they see themselves in the world, other people, and it doesn't help a child to thrive. And a lot of you say, well, I was spanked, I'm okay. That's like saying, well, my dad smoked all his life and he never got lung cancer. Yes, some people are okay after being spanked as a child, but there are a large proportion of people who aren't. And when it hits self-esteem, you don't realize that your insecurities, caring a lot about what other people think, being really nervous of public speaking, of putting yourself out there, of saying no, setting boundaries, all those things, you don't realize where that comes from. I'm telling you that it comes from punishment in parenting. It comes from lack of emotional regulation, and it comes from a shaky bond between the primary caregiver and the child, the parent and the child, the attachment. That is so important. It's important to create that trust in the home. And when you become somebody to fear, you are not a protector. You are the danger, the threat. And that's very confusing to a child. And they can't conceptualize that. And so they don't want to see you in a bad light. So that goes straight within. And they think they are the problem. So try to think of other strategies not to spank your children. That's my message for today. I hope that's been helpful. Thanks very much. Bye.